Hello and welcome to Scotia Gamer. Today we're going to take a look at the 8bitdo Pro controller and why it's probably one of the best budget controllers on the market today. Now, I'm a fan of 8bitdo products, having bought a number of their adapters in the past, and I use them pretty frequently. But this is my first time buying and using an 8bitdo controller. So why the Pro 2? Well, my main gaming devices are my Switch, my Steam Deck, and my PC, and I mostly just use a Switch Pro controller on the Switch and an Xbox controller on the deck, and both of those work just fine. But they do have one weakness, and that's if you want to use them for D-pad heavy games. I tried playing Tetris Effect on my deck, for instance, while docked to the TV, and it was just a bit annoying to play with the Xbox controller D-pad. The other thing that led me to the Pro 2 was the ability to pair it to multiple devices simultaneously. The Pro 2 has a convenient little switch on the rear of the device, which allows you to pair it to a Switch, an Android device, or a PC in direct input or X input mode. While I appreciate the flexibility of the 8bitdo adapters for moving the controller quickly between devices, it can get a little tedious. So being able to move the controller between devices with just a flip of the switch also has a huge advantage. So let's unbox the controller, set it up, and give it a try. As always, I really like the aesthetics they put into these boxes. It seems almost a shame to rip them open, so we'll try to do it as gently as possible. We have the Hall effect version of the controller here, so that should prevent any stick drift you might get with potentiometer joysticks. I went with the gray model, which is sort of a halfway between a SNES controller and an Xbox controller. As you can see, the action glyphs are printed directly on the buttons and using Xbox colors. Since I made this video, they've come out with some beautiful new colorways, transparent blue, purple, and jade green, so definitely check those out if you're interested in getting one of these. We'll gently remove this tabby thing here. And of course, I opened it upside down. Oops. We'll just flip it around and take a look at the main device. My first impression, it's pretty light, doesn't feel like there's a lot of heft to it. We'll move the controller over here though and take a look at the rest of the box first. There's a little insert here, we'll get that out of the way, and here's the instruction manual, which comes in lots of languages. Also in the box, we have a USB-C to USB-A cable, which is pretty standard nowadays, although sometimes they're USB-C to USB-C. Okay, let's take a look at the controller again. There's a little sticker over the action buttons here, so we'll take that off. Again, like I said, it's pretty light, but it also feels really good in my hands. It has a nice grip to it, and all the buttons are really nice and clicky. The analog sticks feel like they have a good range of motion on them. And it looks like it's trying to connect to a device, but of course we haven't paired any yet, so I don't think that's going to work. On the back here, we have the back pedal buttons, the battery compartment, which includes a rechargeable battery, and the device selector. So you got SADX, Switch and X input for sure, direct input, and then probably Android for the A spot. So let's get it paired up to some devices and try it out. Let's start by pairing the controller to the Steam Deck. Under the Steam Deck settings, we can go down to Bluetooth and get the Steam Deck ready for pairing. Now on the back of the Pro 2, let's make sure the select switch is set to X or X input mode. Start the controller by hitting the start button, and it will enter pairing mode, and we can now click the controller in the Steam Deck settings to pair it. Once paired, we can use it to control the Steam Deck. Notice that B is still the action button as based on position, and A is the back button. Now the controller pairs as an Xbox controller, so you'll notice the menu glyphs change to Xbox ones. To use the Nintendo button layout, let's go down into Settings, go over to the controller, and toggle Use Nintendo button layout. Now your A button will map to the action button, and your B button will map to the back button. Now, this works in a pinch, but I actually found it easier to set up a Steam Deck profile and use the Profile Select button to swap the A, B, X, Y buttons, and that had better game compatibility. Also, it makes it really quick to switch back to Xbox buttons if that's easier for a particular game. As I mentioned, this controller is good for those D-pad heavy games, so let's try some Tetris Effect. And the D-pad handles really well. I have some of the other controls mapped as well to make the game easier to play, but there's no problem moving the Tetris pieces and maneuvering them into the right spot, certainly easier than using an analog stick. The analog sticks still work quite well. They're Hall effect and seem high quality, so they shouldn't succumb to drift. And you'll see I can walk around here quite easily and move the camera without any issue. Next up, let's pair the controller to the Switch. Like on the Steam Deck, we're going to go into controller settings and go to change grip/order, move the selector over to the S position, and hit the start key to turn it on. And it should sync right away. There is also a sync button on the top of the controller in case it doesn't go into pairing mode or you need to repair it to another device. Let's see how the analog sticks handle in Mario Kart 8 Deluxe. They seem to handle pretty well, although there is a bit of travel to them, and my hands are a bit on the smaller side, so the positioning does take a bit to get used to. The trigger keys work really well for firing your weapons, though like playing with an Xbox controller on the Switch, as in my weird adapters video, they are analog so they have a bit more travel to them when pushing to fire your weapons. This is also going to be a great controller for Nintendo Switch Online, especially Super Nintendo games, since the controller follows the exact Super Nintendo layout, but also has the extra analog sticks which can be used for N64 games, etc. I should note that 8bitdo recently announced an N64 controller for the Switch, which I've pre-ordered and will be sure to give a review on when it arrives. But otherwise, you should have no problem playing 2D side-scrollers with the D-pad, although you may also be a heathen like me, who also likes playing 2D retro games with the analog stick. This is also good for games which follow that ABXY layout, and assign different functions to the different buttons. By following the Super Nintendo controller layout, all the buttons should be where you expect them. And you get that finer D-pad control for games and actions which require it as well. And there you have it, a simple, effective controller which, at a $60 Canadian price point, is hard to beat for its functionality. Both the D-pad and analog sticks work very well for me in the games I tried, and I haven't even touched on the programmable profiles in this video, which allow you to program up to 3 profiles per device and toggle through them with the press of a button. All the buttons are nice and clicky, and the rechargeable battery is a great plus using a USB-C cable to charge it. I also considered an 8bitdo Ultimate controller, but didn't really see how it would improve significantly over using the Pro or an Xbox controller. I may still try one in the future. That's it for me. I hope you enjoyed this look at the 8bitdo Pro controller and how you can use it for your own gaming. As always, have a fantastic day and game on.